This video, we're going to look at the survey builder within your platform. So when you go to your surveys, you'll find them in the marketing dropdown, hit survey builder. And if you don't have any, it will simply say create your first survey. So once you do, it looks like this. So it'll default to being called survey one. You can, if you like, go straight to options and relabel it so you don't forget where you were. So I'm going to call this my tutorial survey. Okay, and what that means is that now if I go back to my survey builder, it'll show as tutorial survey. Okay, so just like forms, you may choose to initially turn on or off the branding if you have that option, which I'm going to switch off just there. That makes it nice and clean, just like that. Now, surveys are basically a series of forms that connect to each other and allow you to do conditional logic. So what that means is that if a user chooses option A, then it will then go to, slide number 2, 3, or 4. Sorry, slide number 2, and if they choose option B, it might skip forward to slide number 3, which is an important terminology to understand, that each page of the survey is considered to be a slide, right? So this is slide 1 that we're looking at. So the easiest way to understand this is really just to dive straight in and start using it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's actually start with a question. So I'm going to go to my custom fields, and I'm going to see I've got one here from a previous video about forms. What are you looking for? I'm going to add a custom field. I'm going to make it text, and I'm going to say, what is your number one challenge? And I'll put in a placeholder. Please type your answer here. Okay, and we can go save. Now, just as before with forms, I need to actually drag this onto the slide. What is your challenge? Please type your answer here. Now, I don't need to have a button on the page because there's always going to be a next button when I actually have the survey working, and you'll see that working shortly. So now what I'm going to do is, instead of like adding another field to this same form, I'm just going to add a new slide. So I'm going to add a new slide, and I'm going to add another custom field. Now this time I'm going to make it a radio box, and I'm going to say, are you a man or a woman? And the placeholder for a radio box doesn't matter because there's nothing displayed. Okay, so leave it as contact type, and now we have possible values. So what we can say is we can say man, and I'm just going to go. Okay, and then I have an option to add a file, so you can choose an image to put in here and it will display as well. If I want to add another value, I can put it in here and I can say female. Okay, so, and you can allow with this checkbox a custom value as well. That's something you can play with as well. So I'm going to leave this as just 2 options on a radio box and go save. Okay, I still have to bring it over here, so it's going to sit here, and you can see it just has my 2 radio options. If I had put an image in, it would show those images as well, so that's an option, okay? Now I might say at this point, actually, I want this slide to be the first slide, and what I can actually do is I can just click and drag this up the top, and now this is sequenced first. Now it still says slide 2, but it will progress in this order, like this, all right? And the reason the names don't change is to do with the logic of it, right? So, this is what I want to dive straight to here, because the way you can use this varies a lot, but I want to explain the logic because it's one of the main reasons you would use a survey, or one of the benefits to a survey. So let's say this number one challenge here, I wanted to say, actually, field title, this is actually going to be, I don't think you would say this, but I'm just going to say, so as a man, this is a bad example, but you'll see where I'm going with this. What is your number one challenge, right? Now you can see that only changed the placeholder of it, see? Sorry, the field title there. But see in here, I haven't actually changed here. So if I want to change what that actually is, I need to go into my settings, go to my custom fields. What is your number one challenge? I'm going to edit this. Men. What is your number one challenge? Okay, I'm going to save that so I know that's the men one, right? So then we go back to our survey. I'm going to edit it. So as a man, what is your number one challenge? And now what I can also have is I can have another slide called slide 3 here, custom field, add a custom field, text, as a woman, what is your number one challenge? Now, I'm not saying to do these questions. This is a really bad question, but it's a good question to demonstrate how you might choose to use these. Okay, so we're basically segmenting, and then we're providing them a custom experience. Okay, so what this allows us to do, I'm going to put here, okay, so as a woman, this goes on this slide. So now I can go up here and I can say, okay, so here's this slide, right? Logic. If someone selects man, I want them to go to slide 1, which is page 2. See that? All right, don't answer that. Okay, now if they select female, I want them to go to slide 3. There we go. Okay, so now when someone answers this, it will skip to the relevant question. Okay, so now I'm going to add a new slide, and I might just say this is the last page, say, right? Again, this is not a fantastic form. I'm just using it for demonstration. I'm going to say, great, what's your name and email? And you can put text in at this level. This is a good place to explain that. I can say here, almost there. Please enter your information to get your results. Okay, and I can change the formatting of that. I can say that's a bit big. I want that to be 26. Great. Now you can also with these, you can do tricky things with forms and surveys, right? So see how I've actually asked for their information on this page here. You can actually integrate forms. So if they, because the sticky contact will actually pull their data from one page to the next. So what I mean is that this one here, we've asked for their information here. And you know, once they complete the form, then they've completed the form. But you might also choose to, once they answer the last question, you can redirect them to a page. And if the page is the same URL as to where the survey was embedded, you can then have a contact form and it will pull their information from the survey into their record. So it's just another way to do it. It's actually the way I prefer to do it, but the other option is just to simply put their details on this last page. So we've now got this survey working, but one thing to note here is an error that we would have with this is that this question here is going to load slide 3 immediately afterwards because there's no logic step, right? So you have to be careful with the way you do your logic steps of what happens after each slide. So if you're going to have the logic thing, you want to end it with a sequence that allows you to get them back on, right? So what do I mean by that? I mean, like, okay, well, if you're going to have, are you a man or a woman like this, like I've just drawn out, it might be better to, instead of having this as a text field, just have simply a number of radio buttons. So why don't I just show you that right now as to what I mean? So I'm going to say, if they go to the man slide, I'm actually going to go into fields, custom fields, add a field, radio, because that's what allows me to do logic, male, which is most important to you. Oh. Okay, we don't need a placeholder, but we can have the text here, right? So we can say here, and again, we could add images if we wanted to, money, success, family, freedom, right? And then we can just save that. And then what we do is we say whatever one they select here, the logic is that they go to slide 4. So you see how we've used this to bypass the other slide? So that's another way you can use this. So in other words, if you're using logic, it's good to keep doing it so that you can keep skipping progressive slides to keep it all in flow. right? This one here we could sort of leave as is because this person will flow directly to slide 4 afterwards anyway. Okay, so let's have a look at where we're at. So we've added our fields, we've worked out how to reorder our slides if we need to, we've looked at the logic, we know we can have different custom fields. Let's have a look at styles. This is very similar to your styling with the forms in terms of what you can change with the backgrounds, the fonts, the borders, the colors, and things like that. Again, the label is simply toggling on and off the question. So usually you'll just have that on. Just here, you can do custom styling again if you want to, and you can even add custom background images. And then in your options area, you have a few different things, which I'm going to explain. So the name of the survey, which we talked about. And then on submit, you can either do just like a form, a message, or go to a URL. So again, the URL would be a more flowing sequence to something else they'll go to instead of just showing a message, but that's up to you. But then you have these disqualification options, right? Because other than submitting the form, you actually have the ability to disqualify someone during the survey, right? So here's another terrible example. If, for example, I wanted a woman to be disqualified, if someone chooses female, we can choose disqualify immediately. And what that does is in my options, this triggers this action here. So if someone chooses a radio button at any stage during the survey that is set to disqualify them immediately, it will trigger this message, or it will send them to this URL, okay? And they won't even see the next question. The other option you have is disqualify after submit. So with that one, inside, if I went back to this one and I said, whoops, if they chose, let's do male this time. So this one, they were going to slide 3. Let's say if they're a male, I'm going to disqualify after the submit. So the difference here is that it marks them as disqualified, but it still lets them continue through all the questions, right? So basically it won't really present exactly why the person was disqualified. It would be where you could submit an answer saying, look, based on what you've entered here, this program is not the right fit for you. That's the sort of thing, right? And so you can say that to be disqualified after submit, and this is where you set that action here to either show a message or again submit them, send them to a specific URL. The next thing is you can change the field settings to one question at a time, so you can see what this does here. Or you can use the slide menu just here, which is definitely what's required if you're using Logic. You've got a banner image that will allow you to put a banner image across the top that stays consistent as someone goes through the survey. And you have the sticky contact option, which if you've seen other tutorial videos, what that does is it makes sure that any information that that person has put in on that URL of where you've put this form will be carried across to this survey, and from this survey carried across to any other sticky contact form. So it's going to capture that data via website cookies. Which basically means that it saves them having to put information in twice. It's a very handy tool. It's one of the strongest features or one of the standout features, I suppose, of this. And then you have the option, a more advanced option here to edit a footer via custom script just in here, okay? So once you've done this, similar to a form, you hit the integrate button and you can embed the survey exactly where you want it to go, or you can choose a survey on your funnel builder. Or you can actually just have a link. You can always open the survey in its own page. So let's just test the one that I just created, and you can see what it looks like. So there's man. See how that's skipped to no? Yep, so this should skip the female question after this. Yep, there you go. So it didn't offer that third slide. It just went straight to this button. And I can test the information here and hit submit. Okay, that's not going to work. And I think in my case, it's gone back to the beginning because I did not set an action. Let's see what I did. I go to options, on submit, open URL. So I didn't put one in here, so that's what happened. So if I had a thank you message, it would have displayed that message. But see how I selected man? Actually, you know what? The disqualify after submit, because I selected man. So it would have done the action down here of disqualify after submit, but again, I didn't choose one. But you will notice on what I just did that because I selected man, it went to this slide but all these are set to redirect to slide 4, so it skipped slide 3 and went to slide 4. And lastly, and probably most importantly, where does all this information go? So whether you're integrating this with sticky forms or just having the information submitted in the survey itself, when you go into your contact records and have a look at your contacts, you'll find all this information under additional info. So let's have a look at this. Actually, here we go. Here's the person I just created here. Inside the contact record here, in additional info, we'll see all the information here. And there is a checkbox here. This is something I'll talk about in contact records that will show empty fields as well. But by default, what you'll see in additional info is just the information that they selected. And you can actually change these in here if you have survey questions and maybe, for example, you've got empty fields that may not have been answered and you have a phone call with them, you can actually type in the information here and then save the information. So you can add it all in here, right? So that's where all the information goes from your surveys.